All right. So this is episode 2. This is the Estrada Chronicles podcast. Yours by yours truly, Hector Estrada. Um, and this is my brother.
So,
It's the Iceman himself.
yeah, dry eyes right here.
Dry eyes.
Yeah.
We're both dry eyes. But I do. Again, everybody, we had great reactions from last week's episode. I pretty much did the intro. Um, just to make it a little bit more quicker, I decided to do memoirs and life stories based off my upbringing and life. Um, you know, and I got into a little bit of that last week. I grew up from Far Rockaway, Queens, which is in New York City. Grew up in one of the most roughest apartment buildings you could think of, which is called Redford Projects. You could Google that. I'm not lying for street cred or anything like that. It was really rough. Just to get into my mom, what we did, some of the stuff, how our environment was. I got into our father a little bit, but what is it? Before we get into that, I did want to clear up a couple of things. We got good reactions last week. Whenever you're doing something like this, sort of like writing a memoirs for a book, you're going to get mixed reaction. We did our first episode. I do want to say something. Maybe that was misconstrued. It was brought to my attention a little bit. We're not here to like blast anybody. Because we're not trying to anyway.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we're really not. We're not trying to expose you and say you was a bad person or bad this. We do. We are going to say perspective and stories, but it's pretty much only going to be pertaining to us. Um, we're not here, as I assured a couple of people, we're not here to like tell your stories or say or do a character plot story on you. So we're not here to do that. So we just want to clear up the air. I did say why I wanted to get into it, but I think when I said why I wanted to get into it, it got misconstrued with I'm going to expose people, which that's not the case. I did the whole point of this. It was several other reasons why I wanted to do this, like tell memoirs about my life. One of them was because I didn't say this last week, but you hear like you follow up on these Tupac stories, and you're like, wow, like everybody has great stories of Tupac, but then you often wonder, like, are they true? Like, is it like what would have Tupac have said?
Yeah.
You know. So I'm not on Tupac's level, but I often wonder, man, in case I die tomorrow, at least I want somebody to know about my life, about me through me.
Yeah.
And I think it makes a lot of sense that way. And I appreciate my brother joining me on this. Not a better person qualified for this. And we're going we're going to go on this journey. We're going to try to make it entertaining, informative, and therapeutic as possible. So there we go. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we go?
Yeah. Like you said, we're not here to blast anybody, and we're not going to use like your full name and social security, so it'll be fine. Don't worry. We're not going to say, "Oh, this person smoked weed in 2005 and in their mom." Like, no, we're not going to do that. It's fine. We're not gonna name drop anybody. It's if anything, if it's like so bad, like, which it's not, but we'll change names if anything.
Right.
So
Right. And then that person would figure it out, and that person would probably curse us out.
it was like call you. It's like you mentioned me. It's like you didn't even say your name.
Right. He's like, at least we didn't mention your name, bro. Like, but I want to get to my father. I mentioned it last week how he grew up with like a street background, but also he had a 9 to 5 job, so he's very good at balancing that. Um, what is it? He grew up his upbringing was in the Bronx. What is it? His dad died when he was 14 years old. He dropped out of school. Pretty much, he was into the streets. from 14 on, I won't get too much into the details about his street life, but just those general things. One thing he did deal with was drugs, and from my perspective, um, what is it? Um, I feel a certain way about people doing drugs. Maybe that's why I'm a little bit iffy on the subject. Like, to each his own. Like, for people that do like weed for recreational purposes, that's good for you. Like, whatever. I'm not condemning it or whatever. But to me, it's like I'm a little bit like on edge about.
Yeah.
Yeah, like because of the history. So my
Okay.
history with that. Right. So my history with that is my dad was in Narcotics Anonymous. Um, for drug usage. So he had issues with drugs, right? So my father, I think at age 7 or 8 years old, first time I know about Narcotics Anonymous. At that age, I remember going to those narcotic meetings with him. They allowed kids
Is it
in Narcotics
similar to
Anonymous.
like AA meetings, or is that like the same thing?
Oh, in the AA meetings. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
AA meetings. So that's why I went to Narcotics, the NAA meeting. And it would be like I used to hear like somebody say their name, and then they say their name back, like, "Hey, my name is John. Hey, John," and they would talk about themselves in a circle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they used to have to say why they were there, what's their issue, or what was their improvements. Like it was like, man, it felt long, it felt like eternity, but it was like probably an hour. It was a big group too, man. But I've seen like every week I went with him too. Like every week. Remember, imagine at 7 or 8 years old. Like I can't imagine. Like
I can't imagine to like be there and then you see like a 7-year-old there and then you have to it's like oh shit it's like okay it's like a 7-year-old looking at you. It's like,
times were different though back then. This was like mid 90s.
yeah.
So like nobody cared. Everybody was like, "Oh, cool, a kid is here." You know. And it was like, "Hey, Hector Junior, blah blah blah." Like it's like, "Hi," like and he was like I remember how happy he was. Like this is my son, and it's like he became. I don't know. I guess because he brought a kid with him, he was like sympathetic. I don't think he did it for that reason, but like it was like sympathetic to the guy with the son, you know, and it was. I remember that, man. I can't imagine taking my daughter if I had those problems, but things were different back then,
Yeah.
you know. And I went with him, and it was hard. Like it was, he went there every week. He had to go there every week. Um, Also, seeing Dad throughout the years overall, I noticed like he had a lot of mood swings, a lot of, um, like 1 minute it would be fine, the other minute high, and I mean not high as in drug, but he'll be like very upbeat, and then the other minute it'll be low, or like he'll have angerish, like he'll have like extreme anger. You know, Again, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it seemed like it was a lot of like bipolar. Um, you know, but I've seen that a lot of times too. I've seen like when he wasn't on drugs for a long time, it was hard for him to cope because withdrawal. If anybody's ever seen like somebody try to go through withdrawal, it was like he was trying hard
Yeah,
to
you're feeding.
he was feeding. So like any see the thing is whenever that happens, any little thing sets you off. Like any little thing. So like well he would flip. Like he would flip at the dime of a hat. Like he would just flip, yell, and it was something mom did or somebody else did. Like, somebody dropped milk or spilled milk, he would get like really
Yeah.
like antsy and stuff like that. Really, if I went and tripped on a he was always overprotective. If I went and tripped on the floor and scabbed my knee or something,
It's like
he would like really no, but he would really freak out.
yeah.
Like he was like so you've seen a lot of effects from it. Like seeing people on drugs and stuff like that. Everybody talks about like smoking and his body and his right, but I've seen the effect from third party of seeing a person go through that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was rough to see at times. It was rough to see because even like looking at it now, like I've seen it, and it caused a lot of arguments too. Like it caused a lot of arguments between mom and him. I'm sure it was. I know it was other stuff, but the elephant in the room, one of the elephants in the room was that like um his his relationship with drugs, you know, and he was just trying to cope with it. It was just one of those things. Matter of fact, if I remember correctly, him going to an anonymous meeting, I think he found somebody that knew the boss of his employer because my dad didn't work for years, and I think that set him up. Ironically, I think the NAA meeting introduced him to somebody that knew the boss, and then that boss got him a job at the security camera place that we talked about last week.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a small world. Man, I remember exactly how the building was, bro. Like literally, it was a circle, a flat brown brick building. It
It's like a
literally was shaped.
library.
No. It was small. It looked smaller than the library. It was literally like this, bro.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Literally, yeah, literally like this, but like a lot longer. It's like an L shape.
An
Like it
L
was
shape.
literally an L shape. It was literally like an L shaped building. I think it was one floor too. Yeah. So I mean, it was a lot to deal with, and just some of that. What was it? I did want to get into like, and then seeing people grow up with drugs. Like I remember, like a few, I know a couple people in high school that died because of drugs, and stuff like that. Like close friends of mine, and I won't mention their names, but um, they died, and they were great people, but drugs killed them, like overdose. One did coke and the other one did they did weed mostly, but then they turned to meth. And then, once you start doing those, I guess he overdosed on them, that those individuals dosed, and that was it. I also dated a girl. I didn't date her at the time. She was a mom, uh, but she was, what is it? Her name, I want to say this, her name started with an L. And for people that know, they know. And I dated her for a while. We broke up because of differences. We were heading in two different directions. In her life. Um, I was in a different space. She was. I knew she had drug problems, but I still dated her anyway. This was when I was in Pennsylvania, in Strauss, Pennsylvania, which we'll get into. But yeah, we broke up, but then she wound up. I was hearing things that she wound up doing drugs badly again. When she was with me, from what I was hearing, she was doing good. She was improving. She was still doing like weed, but not like she wasn't doing like
She
meth or
wasn't
anything
doing the
like that.
heavy hitters, is what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, she found a guy. Like she found a guy like a year or two later. Got with him. I don't know. I don't remember if they got married. I don't think so. They did have two kids. She had two boys. And I was like, oh, cool. And I actually saw her a few months before she died because I had visited. Didn't even live in Pennsylvania anymore. But this was years later after we dated. Again, we're going to get into the timeline of all this. I'm just mentioning this for this topic. We met and stuff like that. We saw each other for the first time in years. She saw me. She told me about her kids. All of a sudden, a couple months later, I see on her Facebook that she died. because of drug overdose, and said survived by her. She was still with her man, so and her sons. But you heard that she killed, overdosed, pretty much killing herself, and that was heartbreaking, man.
Yeah.
And it was very tough for me to take. Um, again, I'll probably use a nickname for her once we get more into the discussion of her, because she holds significance in my life, along with the others that did pass from drugs. So I had her, and then I had another guy in New York that passed to due to drugs. So four people, like I saw, like got done by drugs, and then including dad. He didn't die because of drugs, but he for a long time he was
He smoked a lot.
affected by. Yeah, I think the thing is, again, I'm not trying to like. I think him when he smoked weed, it wasn't a problem because he did it casual.
Yeah.
But like when he did pills, like he used to do drugs because, especially when he was commuting. When we moved to Pennsylvania, I think again I don't know what type of drugs he was using, but he had to take drugs because remember he used to commute 2 hours at 3 in the morning every day from Monday to Friday, and that's a rough commute. That's a rough.
Hey, bro, there's some things that in small areas of like woods, there's nothing really much to do. So
But I mean, but think about this, like he had he was working there when we made the move. He had to keep the job because Pennsylvania, yeah, was a better life, but there's no jobs up there.
yeah,
There's no
that's
jobs in the Poconos.
yeah, that's a
Like
known thing.
that's a known thing. Like we lived in the northeast part of Pennsylvania. We went from living in New York and Far Rockaway, Queens, to going to the Poconos, to like the middle of nowhere. So just to think about this, guys, like just to go to the nearest store was like 40 minutes. The nearest Walmart was 45 minutes away.
You have a choice to work at either Turkey Hill, Walmart,
Okay.
or some office job that's like near New Jersey, and then New York, and that's it.
Wait, did you mention McNosie's?
Make no sense.
Did you mention Fernwood?
Oh, Fernwood, yeah, job opportunity right there.
Listen, I knew Fernwood. Listen, I wouldn't be able to go Fernwood now for certain reasons. There's a lot of girls I knew that worked in Fernwood,
Oh,
but we'll just keep it. Yeah, but anyway, so with my not dad. Yeah, with dad, he used to commute just to get out of Pennsylvania was like 45, 50 minutes. So it was like I said 2 hours and 3 hours because remember, he had to go across the George Washington Bridge. He drove on I-80. So he had to drive there all the way to Long Island, that's a commute, bro. I don't care what nobody says. He used to get home. He used to leave the house at 3 in the morning and then come home until not come home until like 8 o'clock at night. Sometimes it may not, to be honest. Sometimes he was so tired that he did not want to come home, and that caused a lot of like friction, and we'll get into that too
yeah,
later. But that's pretty much what happened. I've seen that, and I think he was doing as well, and that caused a lot of problems. So it was like, okay, he needed to take it, but then it was like, you know, he had the pressure. He had a lot of pressure on his shoulders. That's what I saw. I saw a person that had a lot of pressure on their shoulders, and that was his way of coping. You know. Um, Again, he was always off and on though. Like he wasn't like constant. He wasn't like that for years. Especially when I felt like when he was with mom. In the beginning, he was like that. But I think after Narcotics Anonymous, like he did recover. He did make it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I do. I do believe though. What is it? I do believe that um, what is it? I do believe that he was good, but then there were times he would go back. So I've seen it from a third person's perspective, but I never experienced that part myself, so I can't say. Um, what is it? That was my thing with him. I mean, just to share that. I did want to, on that note, did you have anything, any thoughts?
I mean, when I grew up, I guess this was like past a certain point. I didn't either. He usually hides it from me when I was little, or it's usually that it was already when he was in Anonymous that I remember, because I don't remember him like having like you probably seen it more than I have when it came to like his like addiction like in front of me, because I barely see it because I was younger, so I didn't really remember it as much compared to what you
Right.
did. So either that or he hide it better, if that makes sense. So
He didn't when you was around. Nah, not really. I mean, he did, but I think he probably did. Like, he didn't do it in front of you, like you say,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But
you
he did do weed and stuff like that. I think after like after my mom and him got a divorce, he was more open, but he didn't do any. From what I've seen, he didn't do any hard drugs.
no, not
Doing
yeah, what not like hard
he was
drugs, right? No, you wouldn't do
not
that.
not that time anyway. Um, what is it? But yeah, I mean, yeah, he was pretty. He didn't do it all out in the open. Like, he wasn't snorting coke in front of me.
Like,
Like, you saw pills, you saw certain things
mm,
and stuff like that. It's like, oh, what is this? So but pretty much that's what it was. Mom was pretty like tight on him about that, or tried to anyway. So it was
yeah,
interesting once she wasn't around anymore. Once she wasn't around anymore, what happened, and that's interesting. That's a story within itself. Um, that is- I did want to get into. I did want to introduce like the people that's going to be part of the story, because these were big time people in my life. I'm not going to be using your actual name, so nobody has to panic. Nobody has to worry. I'm going to do whatever I can to protect you, but you will know who you are by the stories we tell. Okay. So I want to introduce Spade. Spade is probably one of the closest cousins I have. We're a year apart. I'm older than him by like a year, almost a little under a year. Older than him. The oldest cousin out of my grandmother's side. I'm the second oldest grandchild. Oldest one, which is the oldest cousin, is, I don't know how to say his name,
already.
was
So, seen
yeah, no, especially with that guy, because he, out of all people, he was like, "What are you doing?" So no, but Casanova, I got you. I'm not going to say your real name. Casanova was the oldest. Yeah, he was always to me. He was always the most bossiest one. Me and him have had little differences over, but it was subtle differences. It wasn't like anything like out in the open. But we're gonna get to that. You know, and don't worry, I'm not. There's a lot of fault I did in that relationship as well. We're good now. Like, me and him are good now. There's nothing there as far as hate or anything. But he was also close. He was a big part of my life. I do want to point out Jay. Jay and I were probably the closest one. This is where like his mom and my mom are sisters. His dad and my dad are brothers.
yeah,
So I know he's influential in your life
yeah,
right now. So he was, we're so close now. Let me not say it like that, but like he was we were together out of all the cousins. I think we were together the most. growing up. Like that was the guy. Like our moms went shopping together. They took us everywhere. So yeah, wherever I went, he went. He was the little brother before you. So it was very interesting. Then we had the only girl cousin. She's not the only girl cousin, but that hung around us.
Yeah.
Uh, I do want to point her out. Her name is Allie. Don't worry, I'm not going to say your real name either. So I think she gets. She was the quiet one. She was the only girl. Um, she doesn't get mentioned much, and I think this is just my opinion. Like, I think she gets often ignored, or she gets often missed, and like people don't appreciate her because she's so quiet and reserved. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times, like the stories and attention are like on certain other people,
Yeah.
and like she's done. I want to give my flowers to her because she one she's been through a lot, and two I can understand like living in the shadows of boys, and maybe you wasn't heard as much as you would have liked. Again, that's what I saw from my humble opinion. Like, so that's why I wanted to do that. So don't think like when I tell the story, like you're not included because you are, and I wanted to make that priority as well. And I love you just as much as I. You've been influential in my life as much as the people that's in the story. So I wanted to do that. Do you have any thoughts on the individuals?
Okay, I've one funny thought. So back on Allie, I remember one time, uh, she's like, oh, she because at the time I had the PlayStation 2, and it was in a summer, and she got me like a PlayStation 2 game. It was like, oh, and I was like, oh, it's cool, yeah, it was like a racing, oh, cool PlayStation 2 game, and then it was a really cool game. Like I really appreciate what she did, like buying me a game, and then
Oh,
you come in and then you came in one day. You knocked. This was in the Poconos where her mom lived, that big Pocono house.
oh yeah.
So you knocked on the door one day, and then, and then it's like, oh, Isaiah, I got a gift for you, and it was literally the Xbox 360 when it came out with Halo 3. The fuck the when it came out like only a couple of months ago, and then Ali was like, "What the hell? Like, are you serious?" It was like, oh my god, it's like her gift.
She got you. So she got you that.
No, you got me like the 360 with
Right.
Halo 3, but
Right.
before she got me like a PlayStation like game. So so it was funny because it's like her gift. Not that her gift was, well, it was kind of overshadowed a bit, but
No, I
you didn't mean to. But it was like funny. It's like she was like, "Damn, he got him fucking Halo 3."
man, what was this, bro? Because
This
I remember I didn't know that part though. I didn't know that she bought you a game.
no, I mean, it was like it was like in the summer. I think one time what this is like
But how old were you?
uh I had teenage. It was like a teenager. Like it
Really?
was like 2009 maybe. I don't. It wasn't that long ago, but it was like it had to been somewhere around when. All I know was
You was
it,
you was with mom then? Like you guys
it
moved
was
back?
no, it was I was in Arizona, and then I came to visit in the summer.
Oh, okay, okay.
So sometimes in the summer I usually come and visit people in PA, and then I think she got me a game, and then you came knocking on the door. It's like, oh, here's Halo 3 with his Xbox 360, and then here's fucking this Star Wars game, Force Unleashed. And then Ali was like, it's like, God damn, it's like I just gotta be.
Why even?
No, but I really appreciate her giving me that. That's all I want to mention. That was like a funny moment.
Yeah, it's funny though that you mentioned that story because it kind of ties into what I was saying. Hey, how about what I'm saying a little bit. Again, I appreciate her, and I know you appreciate her as well. But sometimes, like you know, that's how it was. Like that's how I saw it, and like she been through. I think she been through her own journey, right? And it should be very much well respected. You know, we're all going to have disagreements with each other. You know what I mean? We're all going to have differences on certain things, but the more important part is to be understanding and loving, even when we thou shall disagree with each other, and that's it. You know, she doesn't bother anybody, so we love you over here, Ali. So we're cool. We're cool over here. She hasn't spoken to me. We haven't heard her voice in like years. So I think we spoke. We've inboxed a couple of times, but that's it. Um, what we did on a regular basis, as far as the cousins go. So like Casanova was a year or two. No, he was 2 years older than me. He's 2 years older than me. And then Jay was 3 years younger than Spade, and I think Ali was a year or two younger than her. So she was the youngest out of us, and then Jay was the third. Then it was Spade. Then it was me. Then it was Casanova, and then you came later on,
Yeah.
way later on. But it was cool. We spent most of the time at Jay's mother's house. I'm gonna call her Green Eyes.
Green eyes.
Green Eyes. Yeah. So I got a little bit creative there. So, um, but she was great as far as Jay Jay's mom. Green Eyes was great. That's my mother's sister. She was great. Super fundamental in our lives. What is that? I don't think she gets enough credit. And even though I could have my disagreements with somebody, I could still respect them for what they represented and done. And that's where I'll leave it at. But on a what she did on an everyday basis was so fundamental. I mean, she took care of us whenever, like, she took care of like Casanova and Spade. Let me explain. Casanova, Spade, and Ali are brothers and sisters.
Siblings.
Right. So, single mom, that was the oldest sister. I haven't found a name for her yet, a nickname. So, for their mom yet. So I don't know. So I'm not going to say any names because I haven't thought of any. But we went in Jay's house a lot, and Green Eyes used to take care of us and used to take us to all our schools. So most of it by walking. I think I went to different schools than Spade did and Jay did. So she used to have to walk us from here to there. This was all like when we went to elementary school. So we did that. We would come home. I think she used to pick me up every day. I'll tell you the routine, bro. Like I was mentioning this the other day with my coworkers. When we came home from school, it was PBS, Hey Arthur on PBS at 3:30.
Yeah.
Then we would go do our homework, right? 4 to 5. And then 5 we didn't play video games, do any of that during the week at all. Like at all. From 5 to 6, we pretty much it's our free time to do whatever. And then mom would pick me up and then take me home. When mom would take me home, it would be. I remember this. It would be Sister Sister at 7 o'clock on UPN 9, and then it would be at 7:30. It was Martin Lawrence, and I forgot what else was on after that. But I think at like 8:30, I was put to bed anyway. So
The 8:30, 9 o'clock ish. Yeah.
right, right. So I don't remember what was on after. I couldn't tell you. But when we was at, we really didn't go out nowhere. But we played with a lot of. Jay had a lot of toys, so we played with a lot of toys. We played with mostly action figures. On the weekend, we would go over there as well. Like that was a big hangout spot, you know. I remember when KMG was our uncle, was at the time, Green Eyes' husband. It's also Jay's dad. He worked a 9 to 5. I forgot what he worked because he always had different jobs. But he was instrumental too. He had like this big gym like in the apartment,
Yeah.
and we used to use it as I don't know, as part of like how we play with the action figures. Like we would set them up on the gym and
Set
stuff
them
like
up on
that.
the fucking dumbbells.
Yeah, set them up on the dumbbells and stuff like that. We used to use that as a big. We were big Star Wars guys, so we used to use that as like a Death Star base. I mean, it was cool though. Their apartment, that apartment for such a small apartment looks so big, man.
I think
Like
I know which apartment you're talking about too. Yeah.
the one in Gateway. We'll say the one in Gateway. The one in Gateway Boulevard. But it was super super dope, man. Like it was we were able to be kids and be ourselves. We played. We at the time we had Jay had Nintendo 64 and we would play Mario Kart. And I know every guy in his 30s knows about this Mario Kart, GoldenEye.
Yeah.
You know what is it? What else did we play? Mario 64. We played Yoshi's Story. We played a lot of. We was super heavy on like Super Nintendo back then too. So we went more to Green Jay's house because it was probably there were really no building was safe really, but probably it was better than Redford Projects where I was.
Yeah. Just,
So I mean I look back at it now, bro. Like I went to visit our sister, like when Dad was pretty much on his last leg, and I saw like her like just the buildings. I won't say her building, but I like the buildings around. Like man, like how it's depressing, bro.
but they
And see, yeah, it's gotten worse. But like, bro, like just way that like people don't understand. Like certain people would never understand. Like pissed off, like not pissed off, but pissed elevators, feces on the stairway. Like they would never, going there and there's two people with like you don't know if you get robbed, you don't know what's going to happen. Like just that fact like of and then living in like just hunkered down, there's bars over the windows, just
so
that alone bro like tells you like
the
what you need to know.
true New York experience.
It was a new I was like man I could never do this. To each his own, not saying that people are horrible, they live in those conditions. Listen, everybody, if people are happy that way, hey, more power to you. Like I'm not dissing you guys, to each its own. I'm learning that as a person. Like you gotta just let people be. I'm just saying for me, I can't imagine going back.
Yeah.
I can't imagine because for me it doesn't do well. But hey, to each his own. Like people could live however they want to live. That's the way of life for them. So, but do you remember that? Do you remember like any? Oh no, because you just remember like Pennsylvania, right?
For the most part, visiting New York, but not exactly living. I remember visiting where where our uncle lived with his wife, and I used to visit there, and then maybe some of our relatives on our dad's side. So, and besides that, I don't remember a time where I lived there like I did in PA. So, besides,
No, that makes sense.
yeah. But, I mean, from what I remember, maybe it's like I lived there, New York, maybe, I don't know, I think I was already in Pennsylvania. Wait, no. No, I was born in New York and lived there for a few years, and then we moved to Pennsylvania, and then I mostly remember PA. That's it.
It makes sense. It makes sense. So, that's pretty much where we leave it off at. I just wanted to get to the introduction of the characters that that we will be talking about. Um, and that's pretty much it. To give a story of that and a little bit of story of drugs and stuff like that, and let everybody know that we're pretty much the direction we're going with this podcast. And we did talk about New York. What was it last week?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about. We'll get into more about you like next week
Yeah.
as far as Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Pennsylvania,
So
Arizona days. That'll be fun.
yeah, yeah. So we'll definitely get into that. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in this week for the Estrada Chronicles podcast. We're available on Spotify and on Anchor. We're also available on YouTube as well. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Um, again, we're doing big things over here, so we appreciate that and we appreciate you. Any last words, sir?
Uh, like I said, it's always good to I'm about to say some dumb shit. It's always good to make comebacks, and I would like to give a special comeback to, and it's not even related to this podcast, to Draymond Green. He somehow turned a indefinite permanent suspension into a fucking 12 game suspension. So hey, you could always redeem yourself at the end of the day.
Well, let's see, because I mean, you can only have but so many lives, but we'll see.
Hey, if he could somehow come back from being like the NBA equivalent to John Jones, then hey, anything could happen. So
Anything could happen,
all
brother.
right,
Anything could happen. All right, man. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good night. Yours truly.
all right.